Cleopatra, how did she die? For her actual beauty, it is said, was not in itself so remarkable that none could be compared with her, or that no one could see her without being struck by it. But the contact of her presence, if you lived with her, was irresistible. The attraction of her person, joining with the charm of her conversation and the character that attended all she said or did, was something bewitching. It was a pleasure merely to hear the sound of her voice, with which, like an instrument of many strings, she could pass from one language to another, so that there were few of the barbarian nations that she answered by an interpreter. In these words did Plutarch describe Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, daughter of Ptolemy Auletes. This arch-temptress of all the ages was born at Alexandria, Egypt, 69 years BC, and with her brother Ptolemy became joint ruler over Egypt when she was a sprightly girl of 18. After having enjoyed a reign of but 3 years, she was dethroned by her brother's partisans. While their respective armies were preparing for war, Caesar arrived in Egypt and reinstated her upon her throne. Then followed a liaison between the young Queen of the Nile and the middle-aged conqueror of the world. It lasted until there was born to them a son, Caesarion, and during 2 years afterward, at which time Cleopatra lived with Caesar in Rome, not returning to Egypt until after his murder in the Senate. 3 years later, the calm of the Siren of the Nile was to be again disturbed by a noble Roman, this time the handsome and dashing Mark Antony, who had been appointed ruler of Asia and the East. Being summoned before Antony to answer accusations of having aided his enemies, Cleopatra came sailing to him in a barge with gilded stern and outspread sails of purple, while oars of silver beat time to the music of flutes and fifes and harps. She herself lay all alone under a canopy of cloth of gold, dressed as Venus in a picture, and beautiful young boys, like painted cupids, stood on each side to fan her. Her maids were dressed like sea nymphs and graces, some steering at the rudder, some working at the ropes. As a result of this excursion, Antony became her captive instead of her captor. Were Antony serious or disposed to mirth, says Plutarch, she had at any moment some new delight or charm to meet his wishes. At every turn she was upon him, and let him escape her neither by day nor by night. She played at dice with him, drank with him, hunted with him, and when he exercised in arms, she was there to see. As a result of this adventure, Antony divorced his wife, the sister of the Emperor Augustus, which resulted in the emperor's declaring war on Cleopatra. The fleet of Antony and Cleopatra was defeated by that of Augustus when the little queen was 38 years old. She fled from the Romans, followed by her lover, who, on hearing a false report of her death, killed himself. To make Augustus's triumph complete, it was decreed that Cleopatra should be exhibited in Rome, but she thwarted these arrangements. Visiting the monument which sheltered Antony's tomb, she shut herself up therein with only her 2 maids of honor. She wrote to the emperor a letter, making pathetic entreaties that she might be buried in the tomb with Antony. Later, when some soldiers opened the doors of the monument, they found the beautiful Cleopatra dead, lying upon a bed of gold set out in all her royal ornaments. Her 2 maids, by her side, were in a dying condition. As to how Cleopatra met her death has for centuries been one of the riddles of the Sphinx. One story was that just before she shut herself in the tomb, a countryman bearing a basket of figs was allowed to pass the guards and enter her presence with an asp hidden under the fruit. By allowing the serpent to sting her, some say upon the arm, others of her upon the bosom, she is alleged to have committed suicide. According to another account, she kept the asp in a vase, and with a golden spindle tantalized it until it stung her. Another story was that she killed herself with poison carried in a hollow bodkin, upon which she wound her wonderful hair. But it has been argued that if she had chosen any serpent to sting her, it would have been the small viper rather than the large asp. Moreover, it is related that she was found dead without any mark or suspicion of poison on her body, and that a serpent's bite would have left an unmistakable blemish. Many authorities have argued that Cleopatra's vanity would never have allowed her to select a mode of death that would have disfigured her so frightfully as a serpent's sting. What really took place is known to no one, says Plutarch.